morning, guys. Welcome to another episode of Sunday Sales Talk. On Sunday, we like to slow it down. We like to chill out a little bit. We like to reflect. We like to talk about life, talk about business, talk about where they intersect, psychology, philosophy, all interesting things that I feel like you'll give you a new perspective on thinking about real life and your business and kind of where they intersect. I'm always looking for parallels between the real world and sales and business and some of the lessons I learned day in and day out, how I can apply them to be more proficient and more effective in my business. But today we're going to dive into a quote. I love quotes. I'm a big quote guy. I think that, sometimes in life we have feelings, but we don't know how to put them into words. And when you see a profound quote and you read it, it's really moving, man. I'm a big quote guy. In my notes in my phone, I have a little note that says words, terms, and quotes that I like, and there's just like hours of stuff in there. I love words too. I love incorporating words into my everyday language. But this quote is from CEO of Alibaba, Jack Ma. He's got a lot of content online. Really cool guy. Something fascinating happened about a year ago. I think it was October. He disappeared for a period of time, and they didn't know what happened. They thought the communist government of China either kidnapped him or did something to him, because it's a really weird paradox in China, right? You have a communist country that doesn't want anyone to get too big, and then you have this billionaire in Jack Ma, doing what he's doing. So it was pretty interesting. You can look that up and read more about that. But Jack Ma, this quote I really like. This quote spoke to me because I know what it's like, not only in business but in life, to go through some hardships and some struggles, which we all do, right? We've all been there. And the worst day we've ever had, I think it's important to remember that we've made it through that. We've all gotten through the worst day that we've ever had. Whatever that day is, we made it through it. We're still here. So we can get through anything. But this quote spoke to me, and it goes like this. Jack Ma said, "Today is very difficult, and tomorrow is even more difficult. The next day, though, is very beautiful, but most people die tomorrow evening. Today is very difficult, and tomorrow is even more difficult. The next day, though, is very beautiful, but most people die tomorrow evening." And that's not a literal sense, but that's in a figurative sense, that most people quit right before the miracle happens. And anyone who's part of a 12-step program, a program of recovery, they say don't quit before the miracle happens. That also applies to business. I can relate to both of them. I'm coming up, by the time this video posts, God willing, we'll have celebrated 6 years of continuous sobriety. So I totally know what it's like to be in that spot where you feel helpless and hopeless, and today sucks and tomorrow sucks even more. So it's like, I don't want to go to the next day. It's going to suck even more than the last two, but the next day does get better. But most people die tomorrow evening, and that goes for business too. Somebody once said to me, who's in the auto industry, he said that most great ideas die on the desk. Most great ideas die on the desk, meaning that we come up with them, but we never put them into action. Reminds me of one time I was eating at a place, having dinner, and they used to serve the utensils, the fork and knife, in like a chopstick paper holder that you put chopstick in, and it was really cool. And they used to write a quote on the chopstick holder in marker, and I still have one at home. I could post it in future videos. And I remember it's written in magenta, and the quote said, "Ideas are easy. Execution is the hard part," right? So I think this lying and underlying theme of, the hard work that we have to put in for the ideas that we come up with, a lot of times it feels like we're on a hamster wheel, like we're running on a treadmill. It's like I'm not getting anywhere. I'm just going in place. I'm putting all of this effort and energy in, but I'm not making progress until you do, right? Until you do. And that's for any great inventor or any great thinker. You have to be willing to put in the work now with the hope and trust that it will pay off. And guess what? If it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. At least you tried, right? At least you put in the work. At least you went for it. I read about something a couple weeks ago, and it talked about, this case study where they would go and interview people who were in hospice. A lot of them were very successful, very wealthy, and the biggest regret that all of them had was that they didn't take chances on things that they wish they did. That they didn't go for it when they really wanted to. Maybe they did well in work, in their job. They made a nice salary, but they never took a shot on that big thing they really wanted to. That's kind of like the story for Jeff Bezos. He had a very sound job, a very sound career, and he took the chance and took the risk. He wanted to open up an online library, right? Like an online bookstore, and people thought he was crazy. It didn't make any sense. And then Amazon obviously became what it became. I've read a couple books about the company, but there were probably many days for him, for the Elon Musks of the world, for all of the super ultra successful people of our time. Almost every day probably seemed like it was the worst day until it no longer wasn't, right? So that's a big one for me. Another one I think that I find to be very useful, especially in sales, where day to day, it's sometimes hard unless you take a step back and evaluate. It's hard to determine what's working and what's not, right? Jordan Peterson says that it's like the farmer and the chicken problem, right? So the farmer feeds the chicken every day, so the chicken thinks the farmer's his friend, until one unfortunate evening, the chicken becomes dinner, right? The farmer's feeding the chicken every day, so we think it's working. He thinks he's going about life the way he should. He thinks that the farmer's his friend. He's feeding him every day, until one day the farmer eats the chicken, and without him even knowing it, he was on this path of destruction. I think the same thing applies in sales. Sometimes we're too close to the forest to see the trees, right? Another quote that I love, too close to the forest to see the trees. It's like we're too close to the problem. We're too in the game to focus on the game. And that's why coaching is super important. That's why you want a coach that's able to evaluate you and your performance as you're in there doing your thing, especially for a salesperson where you're on this 30 or 31 day cycle, sometimes 28 or 29, I know, for all the literal people out there, but you're on this cycle and it's like, you're slowly progressing throughout the month, and you're going like this, boom, you're back down to zero, and then you start all over again. Unless you take the time to take a step back and reflect on your performance, you won't know what's working and what's no longer serving you. So it's important to do that. Another quote that I really love is, most people die in the forest simply because they're unwilling to change directions. Most people die in the forest simply because they're unwilling to change directions. They're unwilling to make change. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. These are all these different quotes that relate to, life. So that's just some of the stuff I have for you today. I think it's important to evaluate what you're doing day in and day out to make sure it actually is working and that you're not just getting by or that you're performing at an optimal level. I think it's important to take chances, take risks, right? It's important to have trust and faith and hope that things will work out and that the real blessing is in the work, the fact you're showing up and doing it. Whether or not it works out or not, okay, that's a byproduct of what the most important thing is, and that's the fact that you showed up. And don't quit tomorrow night. Don't quit tomorrow night. The next day will be very beautiful. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Sunday Sales Talk. I look forward to seeing you guys every Sunday and bringing you stuff that you find valuable. If you have anything specific for me that you'd love for me to talk about, or different ideas, different topics, you can leave them in the comments. And I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Thanks. Hey, my friend, thank you for watching. And if you want to see videos just like this one, please like and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate the love and support. And don't forget, leave some comments down below. I'm looking forward to all of your interaction and feedback, and I can't wait to bring you more videos just like this one. Thanks again. I'll talk to you soon.